previous protocol, safety protocols. And so that all got cleaned up. Our crisis management plan pieces in here was changed and updated to reflect the crisis management policy. Our language now around that is emergency operations plan. And so all of those things were cleaned up just to align with what our current practices are. We also have added in that reunification piece in there, which is work that we are engaging with to ensure that we have a process, and I know that you'll see the video coming out and for parents about reunification. We also added pieces about Narcan, now that we have Narcan in our schools, just updates to that. And then we have a whole bunch of policies that were updated in the back, and so I don't know what they all are, but we updated 514 or 515, 503, 413, 419, 504, and 504R. So all of those things that have been updated throughout the course of the year that are included in our handbook were updated in the handbook then. So that's just an overview of our handbook. Something that happens every fall, I know that this was alluded to in the policy committee, so I just want to make sure that I addressed it. We jointly, as a secondary team, get together usually in August and create the presentation for students. So what we have to do is we have to ensure that students are aware of the policy that are in this handbook, and so we go through it. We have a presentation that they go through with students in the first couple weeks of school, and they get kind of signed off on. We also ensure that our students have the handbook accessible to them at all times through their Canvas classroom, so there's a way for us to put that resource in there. So we know that every single student has the handbook because it is in there. And parents, how are they getting the handbook this year? I'm letting you talk about that.
So parents will get the handbook. They can find it on our website. It's on our back to school webpage. So when I send out the information about the back to school webpage being updated to families, I also send a copy of the new handbook to them as well.
Any questions or concerns?
Member Banks.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Will this document ever be available in those 2 additional languages that were prominent in the district?
Yes, so once the handbook is approved, I will be sending it off to Album to be translated into Spanish and Mandarin.
Member Lofald.
So is there do we have these in print? I know we talked about that other years, like we have maybe a copy. Can it be sent through Parent Square so parents actually have a way to keep that as a link?
Yes, so it's constantly linked in Parent Square, the handbook. As soon as it's updated on the website, it automatically updates in Parent Square and everywhere on all the websites. And I send 20 copies to every school, physical copies, but I have received feedback that many of the schools don't even hand them out, so they're just being recycled.
Yeah, that's true. And is the font going to be bigger, or is this the font that's in the handbook?
It will look bigger than that, that you're looking at.
Okay. Just wondering if I need it.
Basically, we put the 2 pages together there, so it'll be double.
That's true.
It'll be double. Yeah.
Yeah,
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
I think you answered this. I know I have seen some paper copies in the entryways of particularly elementary schools, and I'm imagining at our 2 Spanish immersion schools now, Myers Wilkins and Lowell, there will be the Spanish version also available for families, right? Okay, great. Thank you. I know a lot of work has been put into this over the years, and really appreciate all the thoughtfulness that goes into the handbook every year. And, you know, I keep saying I was that parent who kept my handbook by my phone, so I knew where it was, and just always appreciated the availability now that so much of it is going online, that we make it available in lots of different ways, so.
Sadowski?
You're sneaky. I didn't even know you saw my light there. I would just second what Member Loeffler-Kemp said, just about gratitude for all the work that goes into this. I remember, Adele, a few years ago, you really did an overhaul, and, well, both of you did. And I just appreciate the attention to just doing the updates every year and keeping it current. Appreciate that all of our updated policies are in there. Thank you.
Chair Dirk Eater, followed by, or Member Lofold, followed by Chair Dirk Eater?
You can go first.
Sorry.
So I was listening to the MSBA updates today on different legislative things and different things, and they mentioned their model student handbook, and that serves also as a little bit of a guide as we put together ours. And was there significant changes because of legislative updates?
So unfortunately, MSBA doesn't come out with their model student handbook until July. And we need to have it approved before July so that we can get it out to our families. So each year, what we do is we go back to the previous model handbook and double check that there are no legislative updates. Some of the ones that were made last year, we already had in the handbook, like the away for the day for your cell phone policy. We knew that was coming, so we already had the language around that. I think the only major thing that was really different from our current handbook that was updated last year was the PSEO language.
Okay. Thank you. And maybe as we work with our MSBA, we can see if there's a potential that they could have it out by May or April. Because I think that, well, the legislative session isn't done. That's probably true. But
I mean, if they could have it out by like the beginning of June, that would be great.
Chair Dirk Eater, and then Member Lofold, or Member Loeffler-Kemp?
I'm going to be irritating right now. Can you, on page 5, the message from the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, the dear families and students, there's different capitalization in there.
I noted that.
And I know that you would catch it, but I will just forget, so I just wanted to, so, thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate your work.
Member Loeffler-Kemp?
I thought you were going to comment on their pictures, so I'm glad you just picked that. No, just, no, I meant to add this with my earlier comments, but I really appreciated the changes that you made on communication and the process. And, you know, I know often as a school board member, we get that call and from maybe a family member or a parent, and I say, have you talked to your child's teacher yet? And so I really appreciate you really laying it out even more clear, a number of things that fell under communication, so, and putting it right up front. So thank you for that whole information section, so.
No problem, and I really have to give a shout out to my colleagues at Eden Prairie because I admired and acquired from them.
Well, admiring other work that's being done is a good thing. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we can move on to our next item, which is, actually, this is the Communications Officer Adele Wellen show tonight, which is our third presentation that she's assisting with, which is our 2025 Communications Update.
So as you know, I'm the communications officer. I was hired in January of 2022. My first day on the job, I had to close Laura MacArthur for 2 weeks due to COVID, and I got a phone call from Fox and Friends wanting to interview John. So it's just been a wild ride since. Just to kind of understand what I do in my role, a lot of it is crisis communication and district crisis, and district communication and strategic communication and messaging. Public information officer is another one, so that's mostly dealing with the media if they have any questions. This year, I have been working with the Enrollment Center to do communication and branding. they had kind of brought me in because I'm also doing an enrollment campaign. So that's been really kind of a great collaboration with the enrollment center and that team there. I also do videography and photography. I handle the district social media. I'm considered the webmaster, so I'm in charge of all of the websites. And then you can see kind of the other things in there as well. So these are just a few of the projects that I have done this year. I would say that the largest ones are the emergency operations plan and working with Lexi, Danette, and Todd McGowan and the rest of the EOC team. The language access plan and the crisis communications handbook that goes along with the I Love You Guys communications. I also had a large part in communicating budget changes, so that was kind of an ongoing process, I want to say, starting in like November and then continuing through March. And then obviously I have my yearly ones, which are the student handbook, the back to school webpage, Unity in Our Community, the Gold Star Gold Vine Award, and also doing a table at Capitol Days. This year I was trained as an EduClimber champion, so anybody that might have a question about EduClimber could come to me. I went through that with Jody. He was really great on getting that set up. And then I also did the Duluth Promise launch, so handled the press conference, did all of the materials for that, and was able to get them out to all of our partners. And then one that you might not know, so Boost My School. So we have an issue with GiveMN. They recently changed how they charge their fees, and it does not work for school districts because they will just take it out of whatever the last donation was of the year. And because our budgets are completely different, I was tasked with trying to find something else so it would make it easier for our finance team. After talking to some of my colleagues statewide as well as nationwide, we landed on Boost My School, which I did a pilot program at Lincoln Park, and starting July 1st, we'll be moving over to that as our main platform for fundraising. So this year, I went back through all of my Google alerts. We were mentioned in the news 435 times this year from June 2024 through May 2025. 139 of those stories were positive PR stories, 47 were negative, 63 were neutral, and 186 were sports. I felt like sports couldn't be categorized as any of those three because they're kind of their own category. And an example of what was neutral is, I would say, like our district talking about the Department of Education situation. That's not really like positive PR for us, but it's also not negative. I'd find it neutral. And then stories about the unfortunate loss of our student Oliver, I also put in as neutral. So this is our social media. Our top two social medias are Facebook and Instagram for interactions. You can see our top 5 posts from this year. Denfeld basketball kind of ruled the year this year, taking 1, 4, and 5. Our student at Ordine East, Jem McKinn, who went to the National Spelling Bee, was number 2. And then our thank you to Sean Rode for all of his service as the athletic director was number 3. So from June 2024 to May 2025, I have posted 202 posts, which averages about 4 posts per week. We have received 627 new followers over the year, coming to about 12,800 total on Facebook. When I started, we were about at 9,000. Instagram we had 134 posts throughout the year, which averages about 3 posts per week, and we are starting to gain more followers on Instagram with our students there. And the recommended for any social media to be continually feeding the algorithm as well as getting in front of our followers and our non-followers is to have 3 posts a week on any social media page. Other places I post are Nextdoor, Threads, TikTok, and LinkedIn. We're the only school district in the state of Minnesota with a Nextdoor account because I'm apparently crazy. But I do have a rule on Nextdoor, it's positive only, so. This year was our first full year of implementing Parent Square district-wide. I have gotten a lot of great feedback from parents, from staff members. I've even had some staff members apologize to me for being such negative Nancy's at the beginning, because as one said, he's never had more family engagement than he does now using Parent Square. So as you can see, 42% of parents and guardians have downloaded the app. We have sent out over 200,000 direct messages. There have been over 8,000 posts, 143 forms or permission slips, 826 smart alerts. Those alerts are mostly if we call one of our I love you guys standard response protocols. And then 48% of our parents and guardians interact, and there's typically 2 contacts per student, so that could mean that 96% of our families are interacting. Our top 5 authors are Megan Crane and E.C. Effie. She's really taken it on, and she's probably one of my biggest supporters on it. I got knocked down to second this year. And then Chris Hughes came at third, Jill Ellis at Piedmont fourth, and then Heidi Owens at Piedmont for fifth. And then our top 5 schools, as always, Lowell is still staying strong at number 1. And then we have Lester Park, Piedmont, Myers-Wilkins, and Lakewood. So this year, I've kind of already mentioned it, that we are doing an enrollment campaign. We have solicited our services with School Mints to help with this enrollment campaign. And I have to say, with everything that has gone on this year, this enrollment campaign would not have happened without the help of School Mint. So I've really appreciated all the work that they have done for us on this. So as you can see, the green flags are our target area, and those are the zip codes that I gave them. So all the zip codes within our area as well as the surrounding area. The one that's out by Castle Danger is 55616, which includes Knife River, Larsmont, 2 Harbors. If you're not seeing the ads, it's most likely because you're not in our target audience, which helps us use our budget wisely. So we target females age 35 to 55. And every time an ad is shown, it costs money. So we only want to focus on those that would be interested or would be more likely to interact with the ad or click on the ad. And then obviously our goal is to reach prospective parents who best fit what we're looking for. These are just some of the statistics. This is through the end of May, so they have changed. So you'll see the percentage of targeted reach. So what that means is that there are 28,000 households that we identified as our ideal audience, and we have reached, by the end of May, over 15,000 of them already. As for the impressions, so the impressions, you can kind of see at the bottom, so the total reached, that's the families that we have reached, the 27.9, that's the total target audience, and then the total addressable market, so that's like the amount of people with, amount of families within the area is 55,000. So about 27,000 of those 55 kind of fit in our age range for students. Impressions, the total impressions is over 154,000, and the target impressions is 139. So target means that's how many impressions of the people we were targeting, and the total impressions is the amount of impressions we received. So like if I were to share the post and someone that we weren't targeting then sees my post that I shared, that would fall under total impressions. And then the inbound funnel metrics is just gives you kind of a snapshot. So most people aren't willing to give their information through our through online forms nowadays. But we have received since the end of May, it's definitely changed now. We had 30 leads through our form. 6 of them were warm. Those were people that were interested in preschool, but were able to extend a year at their current daycare for preschool. And we had 8 applications total. But the thing that I think is the most impressive, and I had our enrollment center pull the numbers on, is that in February last year, we had 154 applications. February this year, we had 381 applications. That's a difference of 227 extra applications in February. And only 6 of those, or 86 of those were middle and high school, so the rest were elementary. In March of last year, we had 324. It's a little higher because that's when our kindergarten meet and greets are. This year, we had 360, so that's an extra 36 applications in March. And then April last year, we had 106 applications. April of this year, we had 190, so a difference of 84 extra applications. And then in May, I just have the first 2 weeks of May for this year, we had 66, and last year for the total month was 89. So we're on track to beat May as well with this enrollment campaign. So I'm also hoping that come August, we won't have 320 applications that we have to process within a couple of weeks. So hopefully those numbers will continue to grow. And then starting July 1st, we will be doing a school-specific campaign with School Mint for Laura MacArthur, as they lose the most open enrollment students at 122 right now. So our best performing ads were our new inquiry campaign, our custom video ad, and our college and career readiness thematic campaigns. So again, impressions means that it showed up on someone's screen. Reach means they interacted with it. Clicks mean they actually clicked on the link. And then you can see how many leads. So people filled out the form based on those campaigns. And then this is what the campaigns look like. So the number one campaign that really worked was the outdoor adventures every day. That was our preschool and kindergarten. And that photo of those kids out in their rain jackets just having fun around a stump was our most popular ad. And as you can even see, it had 73 interactions in 8 years, and that's grown even more so. That one continues to pop up. So Facebook continues to feed the algorithm with that specific ad. I've seen it more than any of the other ads because I'm kind of targeting myself, which is great. And then these are just some of my professional accomplishments over the years. So in March, I was elected to the Minnesota School PR Association Board for 2 years, starting July 1st. I have my first board meeting tomorrow. I also presented at the Minnesota School PR Spring Conference. My presentation was 13 crises in 9 days, strategies for solo communicators in high-stakes situations. So that was the first 9 days of school that I had those 13 crises. I was asked to present at the Social School for EdU social media retreat, which I will be doing in 2 weeks in Stillwater. And then I was also selected to present at the National School PR Association in July in Washington, D.C. on the same thing that I presented at Minspra. And then I recently received an award from Social School for EDU for best social media, cutest clicks and shares for the cookie snow day post from last year. And I actually got a picture with Gigi, who made the cookies, and she got a little award too. So they sent 2 awards to us. Any questions?
Thank you. I know we have board member questions, but while we're talking about professional accomplishments, so many things, and I know that I'm hesitant to even share all the things because I know you aren't a lover of limelight. You like to shed limelight on other people, and that's your superpower. You were also selected to present this past year at the national conference in Seattle, and we were all set to go. And there was we presented, and it was largely your work that got us there, and you put the presentation together. But there was a emergency that didn't allow you to present. But so really 2 national conference presentations at the top piece is really important. And then also thinking about board members and others sometimes have asked, what are we doing to, get our positive news stories out? I think that's was part of the impetus of putting this together, is making sure that you see, what is it that we do with our communications, and how do we try and generate more positive news stories. And with the enrollment campaign, I think that not only is it about generating applications, and all of the applications, if you look at an application being roughly $10,000 a year, if that student is here for the full 12 years, or the time that they're here. That could be well over $100,000 per individual that's brought into the district. So it adds up really quickly, especially if we're talking about budgets. And our enrollment just, it's on an upswing. I think quite often I hear people say, oh, Duluth is losing enrollment, or many other districts are losing enrollment, but we're on an upswing. We have families that are really selecting Duluth Public Schools as their school of choice. Member Williams.
I have a lot of questions, actually. I can see why this isn't a question, but I can see why people mistakenly call you Director Wellens all the time because you're a boss. So, yeah, it was really great to hear those specific numbers in enrollment, just to kind of have a tangible understanding of how we've grown. So thank you so much for your hard work in that. In the what you do slide in the beginning, one of the questions I had, you said clerical training. What do you train?
So this past year, I've been part of the district-wide professional development days. So I have trained them on crisis communication, what to do when they have a crisis and people are calling their phone. I also had a training with the paraprofessionals and the certified staff on that as well. Another training that I just did in the May one was about confidentiality and student privacy.
Okay, thank you. And then when you're tracking our followers on social media, do you track students versus non-students, or is there a way to do that, or no? Or is that even valuable data?
There's a way to track age, and I would say that the age and gender is what you can track via social media through Meta, which is Facebook, Instagram, Threads. And the majority of our followers are 25 to 45 female. And the majority of our followers in general are female.
And then maybe this is more of a question for Superintendent Magus. I'm just curious if anybody, like, you highlight a lot, like, yay, Denfeld did this, yay, this teacher was awesome and did that. Like, who gives Adele kudos on a more public forum and level? Because you do so much. You're everywhere all the time. You're at every single graduation. We were elected to be at every single graduation. You were not. So like, I acknowledge how much you do and know what you were going through this week, and you're here now. And so I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Sure. And we do try to show as much recognition as we can. Quite often, we've worked with, we're lucky to have a number of staff that are skilled in media, and so sometimes we've worked with Brett and Patty to post various things, but it's important for us to remember the different communication officer days and things like that, and I've put together videos and things like that previously as well. But I think in general, I think the work oftentimes speaks for itself when you see these things coming through and Adele's behind it, when you see unity in the community coming together and knowing that she's one of the main players in putting that together. I think that shows as well, and I think that the various newscasters and media outlets who are around see where that information is coming from and know that Adele brings a lot of skills and a lot of creativity to the table. I also think, since it's Praise Fest for Adele, if you see the pictures when you first come in, many award-winning pictures that Adele has taken, and really, in addition to the skills she has in graphic arts and communication and PR, very, very skilled photographer as well. So just really appreciate that. And I'm not sure who was next. It was, let's go with Member Sadowski, and then I think it was either.
We can just go right around.
We can just kind of go through. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just kind of, as you were talking about the enrollment campaign, just kind of remembering when it came across our HR business meeting many months ago now. And it's just really powerful, I think, to see the outcomes from it. And just wanted to remind the board, just, I know that a lot of thought went into like which program you were using too, and from a fiscally responsible standpoint, we really just needed a few, and I forget what it was, but just a few enrollments to make it even, 3 enrollments to make it worth it, and we've got those. We've got more bang for our buck, I guess, than that one was the minimum. And obviously, I think based on a lot of the data here, I know how I work, like I won't, if I saw this across my page, I would probably, okay, maybe I'll interact with it, and then I'll call the school to enroll. So I'm suspecting that there's probably a lot more that came out of this than even the data shows, and maybe you probably know that and track that too. And then my final comment was, I really think that the Laura MacArthur idea is a good one. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the data on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Member Mike Cassell?
Thank you so much for sharing all that you do every day. It's a lot of work, and we appreciate you. I have a couple questions. One, the fundraising platform. What are some examples of what we're raising funds for via those platforms?
So Lincoln Park was our pilot. But basically, Lincoln Park's willing to do anything for me, which is great. So they had multiple fundraisers that they're going to set up every year. And they actually have a page on their website. There's a link at the top that says donate, and it tells any people how they donate. So they can donate to their enrichment fund, depending on which grade. So we have it set up for 6th, 7th, and 8th. They also have their One Book, One Day fundraising on there, as well as their community pantry on there. Unity in our community fundraiser page has moved from Give MN over to Boost My School, and then I set up a Boost My School page for Catherine Knapp for her History Day. So we're just trying to navigate everyone back over to Boost My School, because the way Give MN works, just as an example, in December, we had a $500 donation for the debate team, and 50% of that was taken as a fee. So then I had to go back through and determine which of the Denfeld organizations needed to have which amount of fee, and then Brittany had to go back and subtract money from those. Brittany's in our finance department. She had to go back and subtract from certain activities and then credit back to the debate. And after reaching out to Give MN and not getting any answers and talking to my fellow PR people in Minnesota, we all decided that it's just not going to work for us, because that's, to have it all come out on December, whatever was given in December is just unreasonable. And when asked what happens if we don't have any donations in December, they didn't have an answer. So we had to find something, and we had to find something to change before this coming December. And the way Boost My School works is that the person who's donating can cover their fees by adding on to the donation, so they pay for the fees. And our data shows that 95% of the people on Boost My School will pay for the fee, and if they don't pay for the fee, it will just come out of the donation that they made, which makes it easier for our finance department to track.
Thank you for that. Next question. I noticed our Parent Square interaction, we have 42% of our parents and guardians signed up, so that means less than half. Is the other half, do they receive notifications like via email without having the app on their phone?
Yeah,
Or-
regardless of whether you have the app, you're going to get an email and a text message.
Okay.
And then it will be forced, if it's a smart alert, it will be a forced email and text message, and it will send an audio message if the text fails. And then for any urgent alerts, it will force an email, text, and phone call.
Okay, so that's comforting, because at first, when I first looked at that, I'm like, ooh, that's over half of our parents are in the dark, but that's not the case at all. They are still receiving information. Good to know. And then last, just curious, with all of the posts that we're doing, like 4 times a week, 3 times a week, do we also share like press releases out with our local media for some of those like feel-good stories that are happening in our schools that our school families and our school staff know so much about, but maybe our community members who don't have kids in the schools anymore or don't have reason to be in our schools, so that they're still also getting some of that access to good stories?
Yeah, so I have a form for people to share, what I call my good news form, and they can fill it out, and then it includes press releases. And this year I have sent out 1, 2, 3, 4, 24 press releases.
Great, okay, thank you so much.
Releases.
Thank you.
Rakita?
I love Parent Square, by the way. It has just made everything, so I've seen all of us sit here. Our phone, it'll go text message, email, Parent Square, bam, 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 and you can just, so that's great. Parent Square's been really great to access forms for me. If there's something I need to do, it's just one place I know I can always go. So I'm a huge fan of Parent Square. And then I just want to compliment you on the enrollment campaign. This is a very, very, very sophisticated use of money and targeting specific audiences. And you're being very intentional about this, and I appreciate it. You can't just blast these enrollment campaigns out. This is probably close to what we do at the college, maybe at the College of St. Scholastica for different programs, depending on. So I appreciate the level of sophistication that you're using to do this work, because if you don't target it, it just gets lost in the big abyss, and it really isn't a great use of funds. So I just want to compliment you on that for sure. And then I definitely won't be giving your name to the college if we ever need anybody to come in. I'm just kidding.
Chair Rakita, I
They'll
believe that
have
would
to
be a
pay me
conflict of
enough,
interest.
that's the problem.
I know, that's right, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to compliment you on that. And then I love to reinforce what Member Sadowski said, to look at schools where we see these open enrollments and then to specifically target those families so that they can see Laura MacArthur had this great rate of their kids getting to their benchmarks for reading. So great job. I appreciate it.
Member Lofald?
I kind of thought my question might be answered, and it is a little bit with Parent Square. So I'm not a current parent in our district, so I haven't signed up. Oh, I think I have signed up. I do that, but I don't really look at it much because I get it, I don't know. But my question is a little bit about Parent Square. One of my questions is just, when you highlighted the top 5 authors, I don't know what that means. Like, do they send like just little positive notes out to their classes or to their colleagues? So if our top 5 authors sent out 204 posts, I'm thinking, is that like a Facebook post, or is that like an Instagram, or is that targeted to their students, to their families? What are the top 5 authors? What are they sending out?
So that would be posts. So Megan has sent out 235 posts, and because she's ECFE, she's a case manager technically. So she has sent out 235 posts to her families. So like Parent Square is a closed circuit communication, so it's just families and staff. And if she is outposting me, she's posting quite a bit.
So that would have been a really great benefit when I was in the classroom, because the labor-intensive phone call, when sometimes you find out that the phone number isn't quite right, or just setting up the emails and being individual and sincere with each little message you give, or being able to craft one that goes out to all with the same one click is awesome. So that's, okay, I just was curious. And then we've had a lot of conversation and about our enrollment campaign, and my simple question is, are we still doing it? Are we still actively in the enrollment posts? And how long will we be continuing that?
So our district-wide campaign ends June 30th, and then our Laura MacArthur campaign will start July 1st, and that will go through an entire year for $15,000.
But we will not continue in maybe the fall with another more robust. We'll target Laurel. Could we target Stowe? They're the same, kind of that same place.
Well, actually, technically, Stowe only loses 55 students to open enrollment. The top 3 are Laura MacArthur at 122, to open enrollment, Piedmont at 95, and Lowell at 80. From there it goes Myers-Wilkins, Lester, then Stowe, Homecroft, Lakewood, and Condon.
That's great information, but when you share those numbers, are they actually, are we losing them out of the district, or are some of the MacArthur kids going to Lowell or to our other, campuses, or are they simply out of the district?
These are open enrollment, meaning they're leaving our district.
Okay.
So, and then a majority of the Laura MacArthur students are going to Proctor. So Proctor actually steals the most amount of our students. So we have 368 students that open enroll out to Proctor. Now, one of the, I would say, issues with Proctor is that they bring their school buses into our zones. So their buses actually have like pickups within the Denfeld, Spirit Mountain, Stowe area. I've even seen Proctor SUVs picking up students in Lakeside. So they actually have a stop kitty corner to Denfeld and a stop kitty corner to Laura MacArthur. We used to lose a lot more students to Renshaw. When I first started as the education reporter, it was about 150 students were going to Renshaw. They're only, this year took 88 of our students. And then the second largest taking our students is Hermantown at 178. But I'm not too worried about Hermantown because they close their grades to open enrollment a lot, just because like they cap their class sizes and they do a board action around that every year.
So, very, very interesting, and we are careful with the expenditures. We want to make sure that we're investing wisely. We did some research, talked to other school districts that were using School Mint, and through the connections that Adele made and others, we heard that the school-specific campaigns sometimes provided more bang for your buck, and so that's what we wanted to try as another pilot and something new this year. But we'll continue to consider what we might do for other schools or a broader district-wide campaign, because it's been bearing fruit. Member Loeffler Kemp,
Sure.
then Member Banks.
Great, thank you. I have one question and then some comments, but Parent Square, 42% of parents and guardians have downloaded the app. So how do we increase that, like, this fall? Or
So
what are the plans for that?
So for this past year, I had a goal that by December, every single traditional school would be at 50%, and they did that in October. So I had to set a new goal, and I was hoping to get 50% of our families. So you also have to think about our residential and treatment families are also in here, and they don't always have interactions with their students. So like our Arrowhead Juvenile Center is in there, they're outside and they're maybe not as involved. So I'm really focusing on our 13 traditional schools. And also ALC has a lot of kids that don't have parents connected to their account because they're adults. Some of them are adults, they might be over 18. So right now, I think the biggest focus would be at the high schools. So the high schools are the ones that are lacking the most use in Parent Square. So Denfeld has more than East at this point, and then Lincoln Park, obviously being the pilot school last year, has more than Ordine. So those would be my two focuses over the next year.
Okay, and then we can be telling men of that age bracket to
Yes.
sign up to, right?
A
Yeah?
majority
A
of the
little-
parents that have Parent Square downloaded are the mothers.
Okay, great. My other comments are really more just to thank you. I know, just again, being out in the community in lots of different ways with families in particular, that how much they have seen the communication increase since you've been with us. And so thank you for all the ways. I think families often are feeling like they're hearing from us in some of the many ways that you described, from text to email, et cetera. So great work there. I also have appreciated, and I've heard this also from parents, about consistency with the school websites across the district, and just the information and that. And I know that was a goal of yours, and it's really made a difference, I think. And then I also have appreciated just the ways I've heard that, and I've seen how you've collaborated with a lot of different organizations, and you're that go-to person that people really like working with within our district, whether it's the Duluth Superior Community Foundation / Boreal or other organizations. So just, add that list of just the many ways you have collaborated and partnered, and people see you as the go-to person. And so it's no surprise that you have been asked to serve on the SPRA board, and that you've been asked to present like you have. And I just appreciate you as taking the time to share your skills that way as well, and share your time and talents. That's great PR for us as well. So just big flowers to you. And I will tell you that my new grandchild's nickname is Adele. So, Adeline, but Adele is what they're calling her. So, yay.
Yay for me.
Member Banks?
Sure, thank you very much. I just, in the interest of time, I'm going to be really brief. I want to thank you for how you consistently present the school district, and how you tell the truth about what's happening in our district. There are a lot of positive things going on in the district-wide, and all of our schools. And getting that information in the hands of the public helps to take away from the negative comments and negative things that have been said about the district. I know, as do many people in our community, that this district is an excellent school district with incredible students, staff, faculty, and you're sharing that information, you're telling the truth, and it really does help to dissuade those negative comments that most of the time are not true. And so thank you for all you do for the school district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Simone?
Yes, I thank you. I just want to also add, Adele's been a fantastic partner with getting our budget website, our budget link onto our website. And you didn't talk about what we did for transportation for summer school with Parent Square. This is our first time ever. She just sent it out, I believe, today. With summer school, we've had to hire someone to basically make phone calls to every single family, which is 200 to 300, to tell them what their bus will be for summer school. And we were too late in trying that last summer, so this year is our first time. Transportation routed the students. The information was sent to Adele. She created parent groups and also sent those out by bus route or bus number.
I actually sent it out individually to each family
you
with
go.
their individual students pick up, drop off, and
Yep.
Locations and times. But to be fair, I put it in a spreadsheet and asked Gemini to create my template so I could copy and paste them.
But today was the first time a brand-new improvement for transportation and for hopefully much more efficient practices. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again, Communication Officer Wellens, for all of your presentation work tonight. Our next topic, if there are no further questions from the board, thank you. Our next topic will be post-secondary enrollment options with Simone Zunich, Executive Director, Business Services, Phil Paulson, our Mars Coordinator, and Jamie Sevre, who is our guidance counselor from East, who is participating virtually tonight. She's on via my computer. I don't think we'll be able to bring her up to be able to see her, unfortunately. I could turn my screen around if that's helpful, but I don't know if that will. Sorry, Jamie. So, our PSEO credits, it's an opportunity we have for students. We're always trying to make sure that we are able to offer opportunities for students to study at very high levels. and be able to take advantage of those things, but there are some changes that we're recommending that I think will be financially more viable for the district, given our budget constraints that we all talk about each and every meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil, our Mars coordinator, to be here, and Jamie Sabri, Counselor Sabri, that it's online there. This was brought to my attention last summer by Principal Flohog, Principal Tuscan, and Counselor Jamie Sabri about the way we are paying for our PSEO students. There's a much more efficient way to do it, and it's a cost saving. So we've spent a lot of time, Phil has spent a lot of time, and as has Jamie, she's been terrific, doing some analysis. And I'll go through the slides to explain how we're doing it and what our proposal is, and of course, another improvement to our process and system. So I will start at the top. So why change the PSEO model? So the high school guidance staff brought the suggestion to change from the traditional PSEO model to courses according to agreement, CAA, with Lake Superior College. Why make this change? Changes how PSEO is paid for and ultimately can result in the school district retaining more general education revenue. This will be no change for the student. They will still go to take their PSEO classes. Students will not notice any changes to how PSEO is currently with Lake Superior College. I should also mention Director Larva can pipe in too as the Director of Secondary. So right now, our traditional PSEO, the Minnesota Department of Education pays tuition directly to the Post-Secondary Institute. There's a fixed rate between MDE and PSEI, which is the Post-Secondary Institute. And MDE pays for all associated costs to attend PSEI. So that'd be your books and parking, et cetera. Going to the new model, courses according to agreement, also known as CAA, the school district contracts with PSI and pays tuition directly to the institute. A negotiated rate between school district and PSEI, and MDE is not involved. School district is responsible for all associated costs to attend PSEI. So we would pay for the books and the parking. Bill, do you have anything else you want to add right now, or?
No.
You're good? Okay. So we have a graph up here that I have to say Phil put together for us. So this is the traditional PSEO model. And he provided, so we have periods in the high school schedule, periods taken at high school, the percentage of high school credit, the gen ed revenue, and gen ed received. So and he also provided the math, the columns, so A, B, C equals B/A, D, E, that's your math. So we have provided, if a student takes, for instance, 2 periods, the percentage of the credit is 0.29. I'm on 4 columns down, 4 rows down, excuse me. The gen ed revenue would be $12,430, but we would end up getting $3,551.50. So let's keep going, and then we'll ask questions. So if we go to the courses according to agreement, we're assuming student generates a 1.0 ADM, which is $12,430 in gen ed revenue. If a student takes 15 credits, PSEO credits, the cost per credit would be $250. The district pays the PSI per semester $3,750, and the gen ed revenue per semester would be $2,465. So the district would retain roughly $4,930 with the CAA model versus $1,500 a year with the traditional model. So it is dependent on credits taken, cost per credit, and cost of student supplies. I am familiar with this model from my former district. We would receive an invoice twice a year after the semester was over from the college, and we would pay the bill directly to the college instead of going through MDE. Can Jamie speak, or?
Yes.
Jamie, would you like to add anything?
The only part that I would add is, at this time, the district wouldn't be paying anything for parking for LSC students because they don't charge parking.
Okay. Jamie, do you have anything else, though, that you would like to say to the positive for this change? Did she
I
have?
don't think so. I can just answer any questions.
Thank you.
Excellent. Questions from board members? Member Sadowski.
My first question is, for other PSEO programs like UMD, are we also using the courses according to agreement?
No, we are not. Right now, it would only be with Lake Superior College. Jen, can you answer that a little bit more? Or Jamie?
I'll just wait till, do you want to just, it's hard to know when I should speak. So if you want me to answer any of the questions, just let me know and I'll pop in. But
Go.
for instance, with the UMD tuition, the tuition is so much higher at UMD, so it wouldn't balance, it wouldn't be as cost effective as it would be at LSC.
Okay, thank you. And then a follow-up on that, because my second question was, if the cost savings isn't there someday, are we able to revert back?
I was just going to add to the UMD that I know
Oh, thank you.
the U of M system, they won't do courses according to agreement.
Okay.
They only will do the traditional model.
Okay,
And yes, this would be a one-year contract that we would bring to the school board every year for approval.
And I would say that as we work on things like the Duluth Promise, where we're trying to make sure that we have really close connection with each of the higher ed institutions, we are working on articulation agreements so that we can have shared credits, but also looking at things like PSEO and how can we make things affordable. Those are things that we're all exploring. And was at President Patricia Rogers from LSC's retirement celebration last night, and the Chancellor from UMD, Charles Nyes, and the President from College of St. Scholastica. They were all there. It's a very close group, and we're working together, trying to find some of the solutions. And also with the legislation that just went through, we did receive $50,000 for the next 2 years to all work together on things like this and trying to figure out how do we continue to enhance access to make sure that all students are able to participate in credit-bearing opportunities like this. We're also hopeful that at some point it might result in some legislative changes and other funding opportunities so that these are better funded by the state too, as they are in some of the other states where they have stronger PSEO opportunity.
well, thank you for balancing the fiscal needs of our district with a great program and keeping it available to students. Appreciate it.
Member Loeffler Kemp, and then Member Williams or Mike Sell.
Yeah, thank you, for bringing this forward and for all the work that's gone in to it. Jamie, thank you. How many students do we have in the past with taking PSEO through Lake Superior College, and how many up at UMD? I mean, do we got just some rough numbers? Are more people going one way or the other? How can we get more to go? My kids didn't do PSEO, so I'm not as familiar with how it works as I am with CITS classes.
I don't know that number offhand.
I think we could look into it and get back to the board.
Okay.
Unless, Director Larva, do you have that information? Not right off
Maybe
the bat.
Jamie, does Jamie know? Maybe we could
Jamie,
ask.
do you have an idea for East?
Just an idea anyway.
I do, and it is based only on East that we have more students, probably about 25% more students full-time at LSC than UMD. And those numbers vary. What I saw when I pulled up East's numbers was, pre-COVID, we had a large percentage of students attending the PSEO program, both at LSC and it's just continued decline. So Rosie, I can't give you exact numbers, but we could pull them off of Infinite Campus, but I would want to make sure that we pull them for ALC students, dental students, and E students.
Yeah, excellent. That would be interesting, and just this general idea from East is helpful as well. LSC is such a great resource that I'm glad all the relationship building our district have had with them, particularly in the last few years, and as is UMD and St. Scholastica too. But I think sometimes students feel LSC is more smaller, it's more easier accessible in some ways. I hear that a lot from families, and so, thank you.
Thank you. And we're assured that the new incoming president for LSC is equally as interested in continuing such partnerships and developing them even further. Member Mike Sell?
I think this might be a question that people would have to get data back to us, because it might not be at your fingertips. So I was just curious how many PSEO classes we offer between all of our different institutions. And so if that's not something on the top of, or easy at your fingertips, it would be interesting to have that
We can get
information.
that.
Okay, wonderful. And then I just also wanted to extend my gratitude to the principals. It sounds like that you said that it was the principals who brought this forward. So thank them for keeping an eagle eye out for opportunities for improvement and fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to add that Phil and I met with Stephanie, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Wanapia, thank you. On May 22nd, the college and the school's director at Lake Superior College. Phil has had conversation with MDE, and I believe I saw some conversation, there are at least 26 schools that are, districts that are going with Lake Superior College and uses this new model we're proposing. So with your permission, I would like to test it for a year and see if it really is beneficial for us. I think it will be. Seems the numbers are showing that it will be. And what we'd like to do, we have a contract. We have to update it and bring it to HR Business Services in July, and for your approval.
Thank you. And seeing no additional questions from board members except for Member Lowfald?
I thought I
will-
turned it on, but maybe I
Go ahead.
didn't push hard enough. So this sounds great, and I certainly support what we have in front of us in the work. But I do wonder about the unintended consequences, like the course, like there was always a perception when I was in the classroom that where you took the class, whether it was at UMD or Lake Superior, kind of also had an impact as to what colleges you went to and if they would accept those courses from that campus. So that's one kind of, where do we know if that's going to happen and if that would then, really get in the way of some of our students. The question was already asked about what courses will Lake Superior open up to PSEO students. And then my other question goes into, again, my background in teaching means that teachers have to have certain licensure in order to qualify to teach a PSEO, and the colleges have quite a significant determination as a curriculum and the books and the text and the tests, and they'll come in and check in with the teachers that are teaching PSEO if that's still a model. Maybe Director Larvin knows about those conditions, but I worry about what teachers will have to have as their licensure to teach PSEO, and whether or not in our high schools we have those teachers ready to teach, and will this start next fall?
Can I just clarify?
Jill?
Jamie, yep.
To answer so the funding change wouldn't change any of those teacher requirements or anything like that. I just wanted to follow up on that.
And thank you. Actually, I was misinterpreting it, so my mistake about between PSEO classes and CITS classes. You're right.
Thank you. Member Derek Heater, then Member Sadowski. Sorry.
Well, I was going to
apologize.
chime in just a little bit and just state that, we do want to start having some more conversations about those college and the schools classes because the Higher Education Commission has had some, changes with what the requirements are for teachers. And we are at a point where we have some gaps. And so in the future, we will come back to the board with some more information about college and the schools.
Chair Derek Heater.
Nope, I'm just using my
Sorry.
microphone to make sure that the owl gets picked up, so.
Sorry. Member Sadowski.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Counselor Savre and all the other counselors. I had a daughter who went to check out PSEO, was going to maybe take a class or two, ended up going 100% at UMD this last year. And I know just from that one experience, I know it's a little extra to communicate with the college and then make sure she's getting all of her credits to graduate from East as well. Just really appreciate the work that you all put in just to meet each student's kind of where they're at and what's best for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no further questions, I just want to say thanks to the team. Also, Phil Paulson does an excellent job with Mars in so many different areas. I know sometimes we don't always see everybody behind the scenes, but we had some really big shoes to fill from some of our previous Mars coordinators. And Phil came in with deep experience and was just able to step in and not miss a beat and take us even further than we've been before. So just want to say thank you, Phil. And staying for round two, we have, yeah. Thank you, and thank you, Jamie. Have a great night. And I will keep this on because I'm recording in hopes that we will be able to post this in some fashion since our technology still is not working properly. It is working now? Oh, excellent. Great. Yeah. I'll keep recording just as a backup. But we also have our next installment of our budget reading, which is our third reading of our budget. And I am pulling up some information quickly here that I was going to share with the board as well. But Executive Director Zunich is going to be sharing here for our third conversation. And then also, we did just get information from the state related to our, I got to pull it up, I apologize. The legislative changes that we just had, and I shared that in some of our board update information. But the special legislative session was called by Governor Walz on June 9th, 3 weeks following the conclusion of the regular session. It enabled legislators to work on the policies that we had in place. During their day-long session, they passed 15 bills, notably the omnibus notably the omnibus education, finance, and policy bill. And some of the highlights of that legislative work were that spending was unchanged. The total state education spending for this biennium matches the February forecast. The basic formula increase included that 2.74 increase in the basic formula for financial year 26. As far as new key funding, Comp Ed had a hold harmless for financial year 26, preventing major funding drops for many districts related to that. There were some pretty significant offsets, however, with significant reductions in special education transportation aid, as well as student support personnel aid and library aid were all put in place to have that hold harmless clause for the Comp Ed. During the financial year 28-29 biennium. As far as other things, there were significant reductions, particularly in special ed, but there will be $420 million in reductions, which includes the bulk of the cuts being in special education. There's going to be a special commission that's going to identify $250 million in special education reductions over time. So I would say it was kind of a mixed bag. There were some positives, but I would say that in general, it was not a very positive year for school funding like we've had previously. I think we're seeing some of the impacts of the economy and the tax base shrinking somewhat, and some of the financial realities that are hitting now as far as reductions, particularly in special ed. And I find that frustrating because we know that with the state only partially funding special education, when they continue to cut, we're taking steps backwards in fully funding education, and in particular, special education. Tonight, we're talking about our budget, though, but we wanted to give that as a prelude to the budget conversation, since that's all fresh since our last update on the budget.
Okay, thank you. So tonight is our third reading, June 12th. And I did put in my cover sheet, I made 4 changes.
Simone, can
And-
I ask you to pull your microphone closer?
Closer?
Yeah.
Is this better?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. I'll start at the beginning. It's our third reading. And I did make 4 changes. Otherwise, the rest of the budget is the same. And I included those changes in the cover sheet, and I will read them to you, and then I'll show you where I made the changes. I updated the special ed aid. Between the last 2 meetings we've had, it actually increased to 2.2 million for FY '26. It is based off of our expenditures from 2 years ago. So what I don't know yet is how much our cross-subsidy aid is going to be. So that could change, but right now, they're showing the number I'm giving you tonight includes our cross-subsidy aid. We will see. After the audit, then some more, the final numbers will go in. And I updated the ALC state aid per MDE. That was brought up last time. We put in new numbers for the what if. Phil has been working very closely. We still think that number could change a little bit more, but I was able to increase that to a little over 1.2 million, and that does not include the comp ed that will go with it. So we'll hit roughly 1.8 million for the ALC. And then I also increased on our benefit line item. I added 1.5 million for the potential TRA pension reform. That's a number I'm just guessing at. If we have 12 people at 150,000, 125,000, I don't know. But I added it into the budget because if they go this year, we might have to pay them out next June, but it would be in this coming fiscal year. So it's better, I thought it's better just to have it in there. What was that number? 1.5 million.
That we added to,
I
that's
added to
coming
the
from our.
budget. That
yes.
has to come out of our budget.
Okay.
Yes.
Just not from the state, but
Nope.
that's on, yep.
I added it to the expense side. So, Ms. Shannon, would you please go down to page 4? Or we'll just keep going and I'll show you where I made the adjustments here. This page right here. So last time I had the third line down, special education, that line read 25 million plus. I upped it according to the current MDE revenue projection to 28,178,705. And I increased down below in the restricted reserved, the ALC, that's 2, 4, 6 lines down, it's Alt Learning Center, to 1,248,167. And that is those are the only 2 changes I made there. That's on the revenue side. And then on the expense side, as I told you, I increased the benefits to 1.5 million. So Shannon, if you'd keep going. So here's the new, with the new adjustments that we made. The bottom line is the same, the general fund to the good of the 248,882 is still the same. I increased the revenue, but I also matched the expenses to it. But nothing else has changed with food service, community service, our debt trust service, internal service, or student activities all remain the same. Okay, and then I also, if you keep going, please, I updated these documents, the beautiful pie charts. They're so pretty. And I updated those. And then if you go down, those are all funds, and now this is, oops, that one right there. This is Fund 1, our general fund, revenues and expenses. And one more, there's one more here. And then I updated these, the next two, the revenue and expense, so you can see the other charts.
And those changes were made reflective of the changes that you just discussed.
That is correct. And I also, before I came to the meeting today, around 3 o'clock, I checked the MDE what-if revenue projection model, and the numbers still hold to what we have here. There have been no changes.
And for our public, just a reminder that this is the third reading of it, so we've gone through this several times. So if we're going through a little quicker, it's that we've already spent quite a bit of time and conversation on it, just for the public to know.
And that's all I have to present tonight.
So the next steps will be to have a presentation at the school board meeting, and they will request a passing of the budget.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Member Lofold, I was going
Just-
to call you Chair Lofold.
I think I heard a reference to comp ed in the early thing, but I also know when I listened to MDE, there was, there's always, there was a big presence of that topic at the legislative session. So the last that I heard was hold harmless. And I remember in our previous conversations, you have said that what they were previously offering specifically to Duluth Public Schools was a little bit more of a bump than maybe you thought. And then, but you also were very cautious that there is, if it goes one way or the other. So did we end up coming up a little bit better, or are we hold harmless, we're the same as other previous sessions?
I increased it with our first reading to
Yep.
what
was on
MDE
there,
has.
yeah.
That's when I called MDE and I said, should we use this year's number, or should I go with what's on the what-if revenue projection model? And they recommended we go with what is on the what-if model. So it is the most updated number. If we can hold harmless to that to the following year, that'd be fantastic. I think a lot of the budget changes that are coming sound like they're in 27, 28, 29. They're giving districts time to plan for it. And the special ed transportation, I believe I said this once already, is a reduction of 5%. And we receive roughly 2.6 million a year in special education transportation, so it'd be about 5% of that. That would be reduced. And that's all reflecting. That will happen next year already. And we do a lot of transportation for special education.
Member Williams.
I just need you to refresh my memory, and maybe this is helpful for the public as well. Can you explain Fund 20, the internal service? What is that?
Sure. So that is our dental
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
insurance. Yes. We're self-insured, so we make the claim payments there, yeah. And since you didn't ask, but that Trust 08, that is a fund that this district has. We keep money set aside for any insurance payments that are unplanned for, so it's basically a savings account, but that fund was established many years ago here in this district.
Member Banks.
Thank you. Just clarification, please, related to special education. That's a very large line item. And comp ed. So could you explain to us again comp ed uses or possible uses for comp ed?
Comp Ed is our compensatory aid, and it is based off of our free and reduced applications. And as you know, most of the applications are now done through direct certification. I've been talking about that, and I think we had Sheila Oak here, our food and nutrition coordinator came. And it's been actually very beneficial for us to do more of a direct certification. But there was talk about the state wanting to go to back to paper applications, which would have cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars to go back. They're more accurate now, and it has been quite beneficial for us, and we've been seeing that in our uptick with our compensatory aid. And that money is to be used for remedial education, math, English. So we have a document that shows how much money each site has earned, and we keep 100% of those funds at each site, so they stay there. And traditionally, what you do is you code staff to it, and it'll help offset the general fund because it's a restricted fund, okay? And you wanted me to talk about special education?
You could I just need to know how drastic this is going to be for the district because it's such a large line item, and how we as a district are going to be able to pay for this.
So that is our revenue that's coming in at 28 million. There is a potential for the district to hit $31 million in expenditures. And so they pay for 60% of a special ed student. The district has to pay for the other 40%. So it impacts general education. And we are over budget every year. We do our best, but we don't set our budget over to accommodate for that. You set your budget to your revenue and what your costs will be for salaries, wages, benefits, your purchase services, supplies, and the overage comes out when you finish your audit. And at that time, we use our restricted funds to offset any overages, and then whatever's left over that still needs to be paid, that's when we pull it from the general fund. And we've been, with special education, it's been between 3 and 5 million, and it's been increasing every year. I think when I got here in '21, it was 1.5 million, and last year it was close to about 4.5 million. Yeah. Over the revenue that we receive in aid.
Right. Sorry, just dealing with dying batteries on our recording, but it sounds like I think this is a backup now, so we would be fine if it does die. I apologize. But one thing, I was in a regional superintendent's meeting, and we were talking about comp ed. We're getting an update from MASA on current legislation. And one thing that was brought up, that I think we have to be grateful for comp ed. A lot of states don't have comp ed. A lot of states only have title, but the state of Minnesota is, even though we are sometimes in a tight place with comp ed, it's something that a lot of states don't have and don't recognize, so that's important. And then also, I was in a conversation with some board members earlier this week, yesterday I believe it was, and we were talking about the reduction targets and special education, and I want to inform the board, special education is having a challenging time hitting their targets. They are scheduled to meet their targets or come close to it based on current reduction, but the problem is that we always have new IEPs and new identification. We're trying to make sure we reduce over identification, but quite often the needs of our students are growing, and so there's continued identification from special education. So if we don't meet that goal in reduction of our special education costs, then we have to find other areas for reduction as well. So that plays into our budget picture. Other questions, or Member Loeffler Kemp?
Can you explain a little bit more about the changes with special ed and transportation and the financial impact, just with the transportation piece? I know you've touched on it, but a little bit more clearer.
So this current year, we received close to 2.6 million in special education transportation aid. They've approved a 5% decrease, so 5 times to a little over $100,000 will be reduced. We do have a lot of special education transport every year. And I have to do a report every August. It's pretty intensive. Our transportation manager provides me with all the miles and by finance group, and we report that to MDE. And then we also report for just transportation, all of our costs. So all of our wages, our third-party contracts, everything. And we take those numbers with how many miles we drove, how many vans and buses we have, how much we spent on special education, and we do a calculation and we send that report to MDE, and that is the information, that is how they calculate our aid for transportation. So it clearly won't cover all of it, and we are anticipating a 5% decrease, so it will have to come out of the general fund.
So can you give kind of a rough number?
Yes. So I'm thinking roughly $130,000 less this coming year in special ed education transportation revenue.
So can you clarify that when you say it cost us 2.6 million, that is what we have spent, that's what they give us back in aid?
That's
Do
aid.
we already spend more than that in our transportation?
I'm going to look that up for you right
You
now.
know, so if we have to reduce by 100,000, but we actually only, our transportation costs have been larger than 2.6 million, they just give us back that much aid.
I'm running that number for you right now. Sorry, this takes a few minutes.
Do we have other questions while she's calculating?
Not a question, just a comment on our earlier presentation by Adele, for our enrollment campaign, and just given the amount of cuts that we see happening here, how important that is. So.
And I would point out, too, that was a strong recommendation of the Duluth Federation of Teachers during our budget meetings that we had, where they were generating ideas on how we could balance our budget. One of the things that they had suggested was an enrollment campaign. It was something we had thought about before, but that was something that we did. And so I know sometimes people wonder, did we really listen? Did we take things into account? But that would be a clear example of where we heard people and they said, hey, you should consider an enrollment campaign. We explored it and did it.
And just so we're all on the same page, and when we talk about having students at open enroll out of our district, the Duluth Public Schools, because we've looked at this previously, does not have more students than other districts. We're about on average for students that open enroll out of our districts and students that come into our district. So we are not an outlier.
And actually, I would say if I could go even be a little more bold, if you look at similar size districts, similar demographic districts, we actually retain more students than other demographically similar districts to us. So even though we lose students to sometimes the periphery districts, we do a better job of keeping our students than the average district like Duluth.
And we have programs that attract
Yes.
students from other districts to ours, like our Spanish immersion. And I think it's, you guys probably remember, at least in our HR business, and I came across the board that we increased our ADM. We made our ADM adjustment by, was it 32
Yes,
or so?
yes,
Yep.
32.
Yep.
And we continue to consider other things, like when we are able to improve what we can do with transportation, maybe consider running some buses from some of our neighboring districts to go to some of our schools, like our Spanish immersion schools, that would offer opportunity to our Proctor and Hermantown and Renshaw districts to come see us for a little while. Do you have more
Okay,
information?
I do, I'm ready. So far this year, we have spent 2.1 million in special education transportation. That's what we just have coded so far. Our aid was supposed to be 2.2 million, so we're going to hit that. And we have not finished out the month and all the numbers. It's June. We're going to be doing a lot of audit work here. So the expenses will be increased significantly. The year before, we spent 2.5 million on special education revenue, or excuse me, expenses.
Thank you. Member Mike Sell?
Thank you for all your hard work. Again, there's so many checks and balances. There's so much auditing that goes into all of this financing, and I'm glad that you and your team are on top of it all. I wanted to speak a little bit more to some of our reductions that we have, that we are considering as we pass this budget next week. And I just want to say that I echo statements by many of us around this table over this last year that reducing the budget is hard. It's heart-wrenching work, especially when we see and hear about the direct impacts on our students and staff. I understand our goal is to choose the least worst options, and I understand the goal is to keep cuts as far away as possible from the classroom. I also understand that school board members in Minnesota have 3 key responsibilities: set policies to guide the work of the district, hire a superintendent to help implement a vision and mission for the school district, and set a budget that lines up with that mission. And as I have shared at past regular board meetings, at committee of the whole meetings, small group budget meetings, and at one-on-one meetings, I feel strongly that the middle school music lessons teachers should remain at their current levels. This is not to say that I don't value other programs that are being reduced. Each one has tremendous merit and brings positive change to our district, but when I look at the number of students who are impacted by our band and orchestra classes, I see current and future long-term value in maintaining them as they are. For the current education of the students in those classes, as well as for an investment for our future enrollment of students who have multiple school options to choose from. According to a music class report I received from administration last semester, there were 369 class spots in our high school's band and orchestra sections. If my math is correct, around 20% of East students and 10% of our Denfeld students participated in band and orchestra at the high school level in the spring of 2025. That's not to mention the additional 211 choir classroom spots across East and Denfeld last spring. I'm talking about high school numbers because we have heard over and over again from our students, their parents, and even their grandparents that without the strong start these students had in middle school, they may not have continued on their musical education in high school. Not only do these students learn a fine arts curriculum in their classroom, they also bring community into our schools with their performances. They act as ambassadors for Duluth Public Schools at community performances across our city. Our school board and our district leadership strive to increase the profile of ISD 709, and these well-prepared students in these classes do this for us. I believe a whole arena full of graduation attendees recognize this when our orchestra and choir students kept us entertained during the near hour-long delay at East High School's graduation last week. As we strive to maintain and increase our district enrollment, in order to increase our state and federal funding, I believe the continued investment in our middle school music programs is a vital tool that brings students and families to our schools and keeps them here. And the students involved come from all walks of life. Some are high flyers, Some have overcome many struggles. We heard from so many students at our listening sessions and via email that music classes are what kept them coming back to school every day. I appreciate this opportunity to share my perspective, and I would encourage us to revisit this reduction in this area now or in the future. Thank you.
Member Lowfall?
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that and, for raising this important discussion about our budget and that potential of bringing back a 0.5 music lesson teachers at our middle schools. I certainly know that we have talked about this at the board table, and we know sort of that we've still are concerned about it, want what's best for all, and I understand and appreciate the passion for music education. I share that, and I share a commitment to providing the best possible opportunities for all of our students. However, I do find myself in opposition to making this specific change to the proposed budget at this juncture, and I want to share my reasons with you for transparency and sincerity. First, I believe that the request falls outside the established parameters of our school board governance. We entrusted our superintendent and the experienced leadership team with the extremely challenging task of identifying $7.2 million in reductions. With their vast experience in school finance and deep understanding of our district's needs and the future potential financial constraints we have, this budget proposal does include difficult decisions with it, and it represents our team's comprehensive recommendation that brought to us. So overriding a specific smaller reduction like this at this stage, I feel risks undermining the process we collectively established and the authority we delegated. And I see it as almost like a domino effect. We pick out like a little Jenga game where we pull out something to replace it, and then we start asking other questions about those cuts. Secondly, I'm concerned about the precedence and equity of selecting and re-adding one specific position. This budget, unfortunately, necessitated difficult cuts across many vital areas. We've had to make reductions to our media specialists, our dedicated check and connect tutors who support student well-being, our journalism classes, areas in special education, along with others. While every reduction is painful, singling out a 0.5 music lesson teacher to restore after all of these other essential areas have also faced cuts feels inconsistent with the broader sacrifices we've had to make as a district. Thirdly, from a procedural standpoint, I believe it's simply too late in the process to effectively re-engineer the budget in this manner. We have had a long time. We've talked about this budget since last summer, even though this is only our third somewhat formal meeting with it. And we have engaged with reductions, we've asked questions, we've offered alternatives. So making a significant alteration like this now, after so much work has gone into balancing these difficult decisions, could destabilize the entire budget and potentially delay its finalization, which is crucial for our district's operating moving forward. And I just also want to share that at this point, we have dismissed our teachers, they're on vacation, and they've made adjustments. I've talked to some of our music teachers that have figured out what a 0.5 reduction is going to look like, and they are moving forward in a positive fashion to make it work for all students. Finally, I deeply value music education, and I know that all of us do. Some of the narrative I've heard supporting this specific restoration doesn't seem to be entirely grounded in current facts. We sometimes have heard statements from our students, our families, that fine arts always gets the cuts, or our music has taken significant cuts over all of these years. And I feel like, after my years in the district, that those aren't always based on fact and data. It's more of like a narrative. And I see us growing in some of our arts areas, and including our music. We've added electives at the high schools for certain types of music instruction, whether that's hip hop, whether that is guitar. And so we are growing and expanding some of our opportunities for kids. Our art programs are growing in the middle school and high schools as well. So we must ensure that our decisions are based on, information that we have. And I recognize that these are incredibly tough decisions, and none of us want to see any programs impacted. But my commitment is to support a fiscally responsible budget that addresses the district's overall needs in a holistic and equitable manner, respecting the process we put in place at the beginning and the expertise that we relied on. So I thank you as well to listening to my perspective.
Member Banks?
Thank you. And I have something I'm going to hand out to you all after I read this. Dear colleagues, I don't take any of this lightly. I write or say to you this day that it is of the utmost importance that we continue with the recommendations presented to us by our executive leadership team, as these recommendations are, in my opinion, in the best interests of all of our students. We have a budget, and we have budget constraints. Budget constraints are, in fact, a necessary part of the work we do in providing the highest quality of education for every student every day. Due to our budget constraints, we are obligated to do the best we can under the circumstances we are going through as a district. By the way, we are not alone in these financial challenges. School districts all over Minnesota and the nation as a whole are facing some of the same challenges that we are experiencing. Some time ago, we as a body gave the charge to our executive or senior leadership team to present to us the best possible budget moving forward. They have done just that. In my opinion, this budget will maintain and sustain core educational programs coupled with the highest quality of education for all students enrolled in ISD 709 schools. Even in these uncertain and uncomfortable times in public education in America, our budget does exactly what it is intended to do: provide a high-quality education for all of our students. Our students are the consumers we are obligated to. As a steward of taxpayers' funds, it is important that we use due diligence in everything we do, especially in the area of a reasonable budget. This, in my opinion, is a reasonable and well-crafted budget, a budget which provides for a high-quality education for all. That is, in fact, what we want. That is why we are here. In these days and times, we no longer have the resources or luxury to do everything as a district. It will take more and more partners to step up. We just can't do this alone. In conclusion, I support the budget as presented to us by our senior executive leadership team, as they did exactly what we requested they do for our students and the district as a whole. Thank you.
Chair Derek-Eater.
I want to start out by firstly thanking the administrative team for the work that they've done on this budget. It's gone very well, and I'm very proud of the work that you all have done and presented for us. Secondly, I want to thank each individual member of this school board personally to think about all the times that we've had conversations about where we center our decision-making process. And sitting on this board, I can say for sure that every member who's going to vote for this budget next week values kids. And this budget puts forward a budget that values children. As we've walked through this process together as a school board and as a district administrative team, talking about the cuts to the middle school music lesson, the district has talked about ways that they want to supplement, and that includes making sure that we are in the engagement of outside partners. And I want my colleagues on this board to know that I'm going to be standing there with you to make sure that we hold our district leadership accountable, and that they are going to go out and make sure that we can get those outside partnerships to support our middle school model. And I think Member Banks had reiterated that too. It's time for our community to come in and help us support our students as we walk through these budget reductions. And I also want to know, or I also want to express that when we come into a time of abundance again, and I'm an optimist, I always think that the glass is half full. So when we come back into abundance, I will be right there with you, making sure that we go back and support our middle school model for music in the way that we have previously. And so I just want you to know that I will be in partnership with all of you as we move forward through this budget, and we've had to make these very difficult decisions. So I want to thank you for your time and your thoughtfulness and lift you all up because this is hard. So thank you for your work. I appreciate all of you.
Member Williams?
Thank you. So I didn't prepare anything written as eloquently as my other four colleagues had. I do think it is important when we are discussing this issue, the language we use is really important. We're not talking about bringing music back, and I've heard that said a lot. It's retaining the lessons and retaining our music program to where it is currently. So I really want, I guess, the public to know that we are not bringing something back or adding something in that wasn't there before. We are asking, to retain what was there. I want to echo what Member Mike Sell said, and there was a lot there, so thank you for sharing that. Thank you, everybody, for sharing what you shared. It's important that we kind of understand each other and have these discussions, but I am also reminded of Superintendent Magus telling us repeatedly, how we can do the least worst harm. And I think this is kind of it. Like, we know that the budget cuts that we are looking at, they are great and devastating across the board. And I know that none of the seven of us want to make any cuts. Obviously, we want to do the best for each of our kids. And I think about the number of kids impacted, and like Member Mike Sell said, getting to our kids in middle school with these lessons greatly impacts if they are going to continue with music in high school and beyond. And it brings people into our schools and shows them what we're doing. And again, I mean, I know Member Mike Sell said it, it was in the paper, but it was such a lifesaver for the East Music Department to step in and fill in the awkward silence of almost an hour of sitting there when the technology, which was not our technology, I also want the public to know that as well. When the technology wasn't working, it was really great to have the music in there to fill in the void and fill in the silence until we could get things up and running again. And I just imagine an orchestra that didn't know how to play their instruments trying to step in and do that same thing. It would not have been as pleasant to hear. I also respectfully disagree that I don't believe we would be working outside of governance. I mean, that would be saying you have to do this even though we voted a different way. And so hearing the suggestion and knowing that we still have options of saying, is there a way to adopt a revision in the budget that's not going outside of governance, that's continuing a conversation? And so I want to say that. I think the language we use is important. So I don't think that that's us going outside of governance. Maybe I will leave it at that.
Member Sadowski?
First, I just want to say thank you to Simone and the finance team and our other directors, Superintendent Magus, for the work that you've done on the budget and the communications, the really great communication that you've had with us on it, with all the readings and our small group meetings. That's been very helpful. I also don't have a written out statement, but I have a few thoughts that I wanted to share. I think, I don't want to go back and forth, and I'm really appreciative that we've added like hip hop classes and guitar, but respectfully, when you're, and I'm just basing this on the professionals, music professionals in our community, when they share what it takes to get 10 different, it's basically 10 different classes in one in orchestra and band. Each instrument is its own class. And I feel like the cuts to music, it almost seems like we're cutting a math class or, a class that's taught by one teacher, same subject. This is very, very different. I also don't think that the historical cuts to music, there is data. We used to teach. We used to start our students on instruments in 5th grade. And now, when we have had the lessons integrated into our orchestra and in our band, that was because we made those cuts. And here we are maybe making cuts again. And so that's not hearsay, that actually happened. Teachers have shared that. I'm also concerned about the long-term financial impact that these cuts will have on our district. I know that there's a lot of families that come to our district for music. And so when I do the cost-benefit analysis of this small cut and all of the students coming to our district, we may not see the impact over the next year or two, but I really feel like it's going to be short-sighted and we are going to see cuts happen over time. Let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. I think in the process just, I know it's been really hard, like we can't ask teachers for, their input and things like that, but there are music professionals in the community we could seek. And I really truly hope that we can, for the conversation around partnerships and community, I'm really hopeful for that. And I would really want to see a lot of effort put into that. I don't think that, I'm not going to hold my breath for next year. Those sort of relationships, while really great idea, and I hope that they come to fruition, they take a while to develop. So I think there's going to be some impact there. I'm also worried about the equity for lessons. I work with a lot of youth who are marginalized and don't have a lot of resources, and the only opportunity they have to get music lessons is in our schools. But all of that being said, I am going to support the budget when we look at the cuts that we're facing right now. And we look at, as other members mentioned, other programs that also got cut. I just can't, it's going to be a really hard vote for me, but I am going to support the budget because of those other cuts. I think it'll open up a can of worms, and I do appreciate the work that was done on the budget. I would really like to see this as a #1 priority to reinstate when we have the funds. And I'll just leave it at that, but that's very difficult.
Thank you. Member Loeffler Kemp?
Thank you. Appreciate, again, all the conversations that we've had over the last few months. Appreciate the written perspectives some of you did. I did not do something in writing, but I do want to continue to advocate for our music. And for all the reasons that have already been talked about by Member Williams, by Member Sadowski, as well as Member Michael, advancing equity, the number of students that participate, the knowledge we do have that kids leave music often in 6th and 7th grade when they're not feeling successful, and those individual music lessons, teachers make a difference. And I could go on and on. We haven't just brought this up We have been, some of us have been advocating for music since we heard it was a cut. And we've been bringing and raising concerns and having discussions. So it's not something we just are willy-nilly about. We've been very thoughtful in bringing it forward once we heard this was a potential cut. And, you know, we have heard from parents and students across the district on the importance of music in our budget. So I guess, you know, I just ask, can we still pass a balanced budget right now and retain the small amount to retain the music for lessons? Can we still pass a balanced budget and still retain that?
I mean, I think that's what we'll need to consider as far as what that would look like. At this point, it's not the administrative recommendation that we make this change, but what would it look like from a financial standpoint if we were to have board action to move in that direction?
Well, if you see the general fund up above, right now, we have revenue over expenses by 248,000. So by bringing back, I believe it was 1.6 FTE, so it would be roughly 160,000. So it would reduce that 248.8 by 160,000, so that'd be what, about 88,000 we'd have of revenue over expenses. The reason we do have a little, and I'm just going to say this, we do have a little buffer right now because we don't know yet what our fall will look like. We're going to get a lot of enrollment between now and August. We may have classes, what we call bubble classes, and we may need to have room, our assistant superintendent in the TLE office, they may need to call and say, we're getting an influx of kindergarten, first grade, second grade. We know it might be happening at Lincoln Park. So having that additional dollar amount there does give the district some room to bring on extra FTE if we do have additional classes. So in answer to your question, I will do whatever is at the will of the board. It would just reduce that cushion we have sitting there. And it has been asked before if we can bring from other funds. We cannot. That's illegal MDE. So I can't move money from Fund 4 to Fund 1. That's not allowed. So it'd all have to stay in the general fund. And what we would do is just, I'd bring back those dollars in the general fund. And if needed, we would have to just let it go into the negative if we do have to bring in extra FTE for extra classes or our bubble classes that happen. It can happen up to 2 to 3 times in a school year. So if it happens, we'll just, it would have to go into the negative, and then through our audit work, we would do our best to help balance it. So. Anything's possible, we haven't made a formal resolution yet. Nothing's been formal other than, we've presented the budget, but no action's been taken, so.
Member Lofold?
I distinctly remember in the last couple years when we've had enough left over, like we haven't gone down to 88,000 or we've kept it at 268 or whatever we've had. And the relief and almost the giddiness of principals and teachers that have come before our leadership and asked for an extra teacher because now we've got that little bit of need. And I also remember years where it absolutely could not happen, and you were going to have a class of kindergartners at 32, or you were going to have that 4-5 split because there was not enough left over. So I very much caution going deeper into only having enough, or risking going not having a balanced budget. I don't think that looks good for our community or for our taxpayers. I think we we don't know about the financial future. So as much as we can stay with a 248, is that what it is? 248 type of cushion, and then the ability to continue to advocate for enrollment. And just another point, and again, I don't want to go line by line. I think this is probably our first big topic that we've had disagreement on, and I certainly appreciate everyone's point of view, and I feel like I need to share mine as well, and I get nervous, so I printed my ideas or my comments. I've said it before as well. But I do know that in a matter of 2 months, Denfeld High School got an $8,000 grant for this year to use for vocal lessons. And they got it from the Arts, Minnesota Arts Department. So I do think, even though it puts more pressure on our teachers, but I think they are willing to write grants to have a little additional money to do lessons, if that helps at all. They did get that grant, and they've used it, and it's been really, really wonderful for that program.
Member Williams?
Yeah, so, thank you. I guess to go back to Member Loeffler Kemp's question, if we did, we can only take from the general fund, and that would reduce but not eliminate our cushion. So we would still have a cushion left for the hypothetical bubble classes.
Well, if we take the line 1 there all the way across, so see, we have to the good of 248,882. I would just reduce that by 160.
So that means
that's
there's still
roughly
something left
There would
in
still be
the-
about 88,000, yes.
Just making sure my math is math,
Your
and
math is correct.
there's still a little bit of cushion.
Yes, there is,
But less than one teacher.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I think in some ways we are looking for direction from the board, but I think we'll have to just see where things go at the regular board meeting. And just want to say that these conversations are very challenging for all of us. I do not relish making any of these cuts whatsoever. They've been very hard. It was a long process that we spent many months on, many different meetings. A lot of the recommendations came through our principals and our teaching and learning team. And we also recognize that these are very important to many people, and it's a hard choice for you as board members, and I know it's difficult. And I appreciate the dedication and passion with which you come to the table here. So thank you. If there are any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you. From my standpoint, that concludes tonight's Committee of the Whole agenda. And we'll wait till we're